days. And then at the end of that time, then God raises them up to life, and it says fear strikes the entire world when they see that they come back to life again. Because they're like, oh my gosh, we thought we were done with these guys. Right? They will hate you, they will persecute you, you will be hated of all nations. Many will be offended. They'll hate one another. They're going to end up betraying one another. We talked about how that's people that claim to be Christians betraying the other people who claim to be Christians. Because iniquity abounds, and that word iniquity, anomos, without law, because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. And I told you that grow cold meant to evaporate. It's the coolness that happens by evaporation. It's this breeze that's just constantly blowing over. We were talking about how if we don't have love coming in, we're going to run out of love going out. We've got to have some way to keep ourselves filled with love. I shared the experience about the red, white, and blue. Help me. What is it again? Sonic, right? The Sonic that I was frustrated with. And I realized, oh wow, I need to be careful because my love's getting cold, right? He that will endure to the end of sorrows, the same will be saved. This is the gospel of the kingdom will be preached to all the world. Okay, we got through all that. We went right to verse 15, which says, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, and I told you what? We have to understand what therefore is. Therefore, right? What is therefore? We have to ask ourselves. Therefore means as a result of what's just been stated. So Jesus is saying, I've given you this litany. I've told you all these things that are going to happen. I've given them all to you. And as a result of all these things, as a result of that, when you see the abomination of desolation. So Jesus is saying, look, these things in and of themselves are not definitive enough for you to know where you're at in time. They're going to happen. But when you see all of them mounting on top of each other and they culminate with what I'm talking about in verse 15, this is the one I'm talking about. So Jesus is saying in verses 4 through 14, let all these things catch your attention. Pay attention. When you start seeing wars and rumors of wars, you see famines and plagues and pestilences. People are trying to deliver up Christians. They're being persecuted. You're being hated by all people for my name's sake. These things should be catching your attention. You should be watching because the next definitive thing that's going to tell you where you're really at is verse 15. And verse 15 says this, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, let him which is in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return to take his clothes. And I talked and I said, the only time, the first time in history that this scripture could have been fulfilled was sometime after 1953. We had to have satellites in the air or we had to have cell phone towers because you cannot be in the field, on top of a house, or in the city and simultaneously see something. The only way we could all simultaneously see something is if there was a way to distribute the image to the world wirelessly. Because there's no other way to get the image to everything, to all these places, out in the field, on top of the roof, and into the city. Our generation saw this scripture fulfilled. We're the first generation that's seen this happen. So, the goal tonight is to talk about the abomination of desolation. So the abomination of desolation, he said we have here in Matthew, in Matthew 24:15, the abomination of desolation is identified by Daniel the prophet. That's what verse 15 says. So we're going to go start, and tonight, all we're probably going to get through tonight is Daniel. This whole night's going to just be Daniel. All right? So let's go to Daniel chapter 7. So if you open up in the middle, it's Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Songs. And then right after that, you go into the prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel. So open to the middle and start going to the right. Daniel chapter 7. So, this is fun. Now, we're going to read it so that we can hear it, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about it. All right? And then we're going to do the same thing with chapter 8. And then chapter 9, and if we can keep going, we'll do it chapter 11 and chapter 12, at least part of chapter 11. I'm hoping that by the time the evening's done, we get through all the Daniel scriptures that we need to talk about. The beast man that's coming, the beast kingdom that's coming, and the abomination of desolation, because that's what the abomination of desolation represents, is the beast. All right? Not to be confused with the four beasts, which we're just getting ready to read about. Daniel chapter 7, verse 1, and I told you the other day, I'm a King James person. I will jump into the Buck Hurlbut translation every so often to keep it in English. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and a vision of his head upon his bed, and he wrote the dream, and he told the sum of it to individuals. Daniel spoke and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, 4 winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse from one another. Verse 4. The first was like a lion, had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted off of the earth, and made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second like to a bear, raised itself up on one side, and had 3 ribs in its mouth, and in between the teeth of it, and they said thus to it, Arise and devour much flesh. Verse 6. After this I beheld, and there was a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings like a fowl. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. It had great iron teeth, and it devoured and broke into pieces. It stamped the residue with its feet. It was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. And I considered the horns, verse 8, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, and before the little horn, 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, this horn had eyes, the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Verse 9. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, the Ancient of Days sat, whose garment was white as snow, the hair of his head like pure wool, the throne was like a fiery flame, and the wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered to him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was said, and the books were opened. And I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spoke, and I behold even until the beast was slain, his body was destroyed and given to the burning flame. Verse 12. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. I saw in the night visions in verse 13, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near to him, and there was given him dominion and glory and kingdom, that all the people and nations and the languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which will not pass away, and his kingdom that which will not be destroyed. And I, Daniel, was grieved, verse 15. I was grieved in my spirit, and in the midst of my body, and the visions in my head troubled me. And I came near to them that stood by, and I asked him the truth of all this. So he told me, and made me know the interpretation of things. So, 1 to 16, we see the vision, and now we're going to hear what Daniel is hearing the interpretation is. Verse 17. These great beasts, which are 4 kings, which will arise out of the earth. And verse 17, that's how we know that the beast is going to be a king, right? He's going to be a world leader. But the saints of the Most High will take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I would know the truth of the 4th beast, which was different from all the others, and exceedingly dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and nails of brass, which devoured and broke into pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn which had the eyes and the mouth that spoke very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I behold, and the horn which made war with the saints and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom, and thus he said, The 4th beast will be the 4th kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all the kingdoms, and shall devour the whole world, and will tread it down and break it into pieces. The 10 horns out of this kingdom, verse 24, are 10 kings that will arise, and another will arise after them, and he will be diverse from the first, and he will subdue 3 kings. He'll speak great words against the Most High, and will wear out the saints of the Most High. So he will think to challenge and to change times and laws, and they'll be given to his hand for a time, times, and dividing of time. But the judgment will sit, and they will take away the dominion, to consume and destroy it to the end. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven will be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions will serve and obey him. Hereto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations, my thoughts, my concerns troubled me very much. My countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. Okay, we did it. We got all the way through Daniel chapter 7. There's a lot in there, right? And you're like, oh boy. So the reason I read it so quickly was because I just wanted us to hear it in context, right? Let's go back and let's divide it now. Let's pull it out, right?